D'rinda Randall, newly elected chair of the
Yes.
Texas GOP. Thank you so much. Welcome to Ion Politics and congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
So why do you think you won? Was it a surprise?
It was not a surprise. When it comes to the delegates, when it comes to going to convention, it is the most educated and most informed voter in Texas. And so I knew that what I needed to do is state my case with them and what I wanted to do for the Republican Party. And so I traveled to over 120 cities.
Wow.
And I did that as vice chair, but then whenever I ran for chair, I did another 20 cities on top of the 100 that I had already seen. So, and a lot of those people during my 2 years had asked me to run for office for the chair. And I thought, no, I'm okay, you know. And but then the more I looked at what was not happening, what I was capable of, because I have built other organizations before. So I thought, you know what, I still have that desire. I know where the RPT could go. And I thought, I've got to run. And of course, I prayed a lot about it. And once I felt strongly that God was directing me and that the people of Texas had said enough, then that's why I ran. And we won by 80% of the vote. So that was historical for the RPT, and it's a mandate for me, and it's also something that I've got to live up to, and I cannot, it's all factions of the Republican Party that voted for me. It was the very grassroots, far right, which I am, and it's the ones that are more moderate, that they all said, we've got to have a different direction because the midterms are right around the corner.
So what was the mandate? What was not getting done that you thought that led you to run? And you know, what was the direction change that needed to happen?
Well, financially, we need to be in a better spot. That's one of the things that we've found now that I have taken the reins and looked at our finances at the bank and our accounting departments. And so that's one of the things. The other thing is that our county chairs did not have a partnership with the Republican Party of Texas. They weren't getting phone calls back. They weren't getting emails back. And so if you don't have strong counties, you will not have a strong Texas. And so I wanted to make sure when it came to our county chairs that I heard them, that I reacted, and that I got things done. Because while I was vice chair, when they couldn't get answers from the RPT, they would call me and I would help them. And that was, you know, one of the biggest groundswells was the county chairs that I did help. They're the ones that then told other county chairs the things that I had done. They had also told their delegates what I had done for them. So that was, it's all about customer service. If you do not have customer service, you can't, and you don't feel like serving the people, it will come back on you, because people know that the Republican Party is a relationship-based organization. And right down from our precinct chairs to our county chairs to our SRECs, which is our State Republican Executive Committee, to us, to me, I've got to have a servant heart. And that's what we have now, and that's what we will carry through to the midterms, because we've all got to pull together to get AG Paxton into the Senate role and everybody else down the pike.
And how do you think that the party is fractured? Because there's been a lot of talk about that, number one, but number two, the overall message from the Texas GOP convention was unity, unity, unity. Mm-hmm. Well, if the party wasn't unified, you wouldn't need to say that. Or if it was unified, you wouldn't need to say that, right? So how badly fractured is the party?
The party is fractured. I'm not gonna say that it's not. The infighting has been pretty high, but with the race that I just won, all I ran on was I have a plan, and I have a plan for the RPT to succeed. I have a plan for the midterms. I have a plan for the youth of the RPT. You know, we have a ton of young people that have gotten involved since Charlie Kirk's assassination. We had 86,000 chapters of Turning Point that grew and prospered all over America, and in Texas it's the same way. Our youth are very engaged, but if we do not capture that, if they don't feel they have a partner, then they are going to go about their life and they're not going to be part of the party. I've got to make sure that I capitalize on that, I get them involved, and we have a backbench for Republicans that are coming up in the future. So that's having a direction, having a vision, having a product that everybody believes in. That's how you bring unity. Just like whenever it comes to a business, you have to have a product in order to get unity for people to come and purchase that product. If you don't have a direction, you're not going to have the unity. If we're all marching to the same thing, which is midterms, which is making sure that Trump does not get impeached, which that's what the Democrats have said that they will do if they get back into leadership, if they get back the majority, that's the first thing they're going to do. My job is to make sure that doesn't happen, is to grow our base, go chase every vote possible. And so we've got to bring everybody together to know what the big picture really is.
So what is your vision? What is the product that you're selling?
Right. So, so many times a lot of people don't even know what a Republican is, and we've got to make sure that we state that case. One of the things is I'm going to make sure that our messaging is great, because right now the Democrats do better when it comes to messaging, and we don't. We have been woefully behind on that issue. So I am already working with different organizations to help us with our messaging. The other thing is that I'm going to have a finance committee. I'm also going to make sure that we have a county chair convention. We help our county chairs with growing their base because they're the ones that have to in their own counties. And so I want to make sure that they have a partner with that. And having leadership that also respects our SREC, our State Republican Executive Committee. They are our board of directors. They are my boss. And so I've got to make sure that I adhere to the bylaws and everything, or they will make sure that I stand in line. And so I've got to make sure that the relationships they also have with our legislators are something that is captured and is enhanced. And so I am going to have a retreat of sort, but having the legislators come in and meet them, build that relationship. And when it comes to our young people, the vice chair, David Covey, one of the things that he wants to do is make sure that he trains 100 young people to run for office. So that way we have our backbench. We have a lot more youth in our party than the Democrats do. And they are wildly sharp and they're wanting to get into the party. And so we've got to make sure we help them because they're young. They're going to do things that they need our mentorship. And so I also want to make sure that the seniors in our party, we were young too when we started out in this thing. And so we have the mentorship and the ability to help them as well because we've been there, done that. And so I've been part of this for 20 years. The other thing that I want to make sure that all across the state, we have people doing the 250th birthday. I want to make sure we capture all the events that they're doing and put that all over social media. For one thing that you're seeing right now is all these amazing foreigners that have come in for World Cup, and they love this country. And I just think that that energy is so palatable, and that's what I've seen all over Texas is how much people love this state. And seeing their energy just fuels everybody else for their love of this country and for their love of this state and the love of barbecue.
Well, everybody loves barbecue,
everybody.
Right? So let me ask you about one thing that the party has been fighting for, and that is to close the primaries. Mm-hmm. And Governor Abbott announced during the convention that he favors that now. Why is that so important? And essentially what would have to happen is people would have to register to be in the party, right? Why is that important for the success of the party going forward, do you think?
Well, the Democrat Party should never choose our elected officials in the Republican Party, just like we should never choose theirs.
Has that happened, though?
Oh, yes. Okay, so there's been a few races. David Covey, who's the vice chair, he ran against Dade Phelan. And when Dade looked like he was going to lose, he made a deal with the Democrats, and 2,000 of them came over and voted, and David only lost by 366 votes. So that has happened a lot over Texas. When it comes to party leadership, the thing is it's only Republicans that vote for me and vote for the vice chair. So why, if the Republican Party, it's good enough for leadership to only have Republicans vote for us, then why can't we do that with every nominee? So that's where we need to go when it comes to the primaries, that we should never allow another party who doesn't keep our values and doesn't believe in our policies. Why should they be able to pick our candidates? So I'm very excited to see that Governor Abbott is embracing it as well, because I think that we really have a chance of making that happen.
What do you say to those who say, they don't think it's such a great idea because what happens to independents who lean Republican and they want to stay independent? How do you attract them in the general, et cetera? And people say having a very successful primary, then you've got those folks in the bank, so to speak, and you don't have to necessarily worry about them in the general election. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that that's where the communication and the messaging has to come in, and we've got to get stronger on that. Our policies are not, we don't fight for them just because they're good for Republicans. We fight for them because they're good for all Texans. We fight for property taxes to be low or to be eliminated. We fight for secure elections. We fight for babies to be born. We fight for all of these things because we know that that's best for all people. That's why we are a more compassionate party, is because we want all people to succeed. We don't just want Republicans to succeed, we want all people to. And that's why our messaging has got to be better when it comes to getting more people to understand where we're coming from.
When you talk about messaging, I know that, does that directly go back to the fact that the party's been strapped for cash, and has that hurt the party? Because getting your message out costs money, right? So is that what you're hoping part of the way to increase the party's finances, fundraising, et cetera, is to get that messaging out there? And has that held the party back, in your opinion?
The finance, it just hasn't been made a priority. And that's where I see the old administration had a photographer that followed them around to different events, and all you saw on our social media was the chairman. And you didn't see the beauty of what's happening all over the state with all these county chairs and all of these grassroots and TFRW, all of them, the things that they do all throughout Texas, that has not been highlighted. And the thing is you cannot have the energy if you think it's only one person. You've got to have the energy showing it's a whole big family that's making this work. And that's what I intend to do, is to make sure that we highlight all of it, especially like the youth. The youth energizes not only themselves, that they see more youth involved, but they also energize us old timers that have been in here for a long time. We see, hey, you know what? The best is yet to come. Look at these sharp people that are getting involved with the Republican Party, and look at what the backbench that we're already forming. So that's where I think that we need to carry it to, is the messaging is that we're a big, huge family. Yeah, we're dysfunctional at times, but what family isn't? So we've got to come in for the family reunion, which is in November, when we win and have the best party ever.
And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, since the primary runoff, when Attorney General Ken Paxton really wanted a blowout and defeated Senator Cornyn. So how do you reach Republicans who may not really be so crazy about Paxton because of baggage, et cetera, and how do you attract them to come back to the fold, and instead of either voting for State Representative James Tallarico on the Democratic side, or just staying home?
Right. And it's a very good question, because that's one of the questions that everybody is asking right now. But the thing is that in politics, 2 weeks is a lifetime in politics. We've got until November to show everybody what Tallarico's, what he wants to do for the state. Yes, his policies and his thinking is beyond anything I've ever heard, that Jesus is non-binary and he's supposedly a pastor and all of these things. But it's also that he missed over 700 votes when he was in office. You have to look at his record, you have to look at his rhetoric, because what he's saying in his rhetoric is what he wants to do in policy. And those policies will hurt Texas. So I have until November to make that case. And the Cornyn voters are already starting to see, because I had a call today before I got here of Cornyn voters that are saying, yes, we have to vote for Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton has had a tremendous record as AG, and he was as a senator. And so we have to look at his successes and then look at, compared to Tallarico, you want to go this way just because you don't want to vote for the Republican that was unanimous, that won by a landslide. That's somebody that we need to love Texas more than we love who is up for election.
And do you think that is a convincing argument to make to people Republicans who have said they're not voting for Paxton?
I think so, because today, the people that I talked to on the call that I had today, they were very much Cornyn supporters, but they are now starting to see that Texas will fail if we have somebody like Tallarico in there. And I'm not giving it hyperbole. You just look at the words the man has said. If that's the best the Democrats have to offer, then we are good. But the thing is I've got to make the case, because he is smooth in the things that he says, and they're not paying attention to the words that he says, because those are the very policies that he will try to instill. And in Texas, we don't want men in girls' restrooms. We don't want girls to have to compete against boys. We don't want children to be mutilated. Those are things that are not a success. We need to focus on the success of these children to make sure that their academic excellence is all that they think about, not anything else. Not being self-serving, because that is not going to get them to a successful future. And if we have politicians like that make them go inside to find their happiness, then that is not a recipe, or go to social media to find their happiness. It's not a recipe for their success, and in the long term, not a successful Texas. And so that's where I'm at with him.
How important is it that President Trump is going to come to Texas to campaign for Paxton?
Oh, how important is that? Well, that man can get people motivated to get out to the polls, unlike anybody that we've seen. I was an election judge in Houston, in Harris County, this last, in 2024, and seeing the young people coming in. Now, you're not supposed to say who you're voting for, but these kids, and it was young men coming in over and over and over again saying, I'm voting for Trump, and which, as an election judge, I had to say, simmer down. Can't talk like that here. But he has a way to get the energy and to make people see the seriousness, because the thing is if we lose Texas, not only will we lose the greatest state in the nation, but we could also lose President Trump.
And let me ask about, I spoke with a Democratic state lawmaker who was at LULAC's convention here in Fort Worth last week. And she thinks this is going to be a good year for Democrats when it comes to the Latino vote. Obviously, back in 2024, when you look up and down the southern border, all those counties, most of those counties went and voted for President Trump. And Democrats believe this time that's not going to happen. And they believe that they're going to win. What do you say to that?
Well, I can tell you that while I was vice chair, the place that I loved going to the most was South Texas, because they had an energy for the newfound freedom that they found in the Republican Party. And they know that our policies are exactly the way that they were raised, the way that their culture is. So I think we're going to be able to keep them. We won 12 out of 14. I'd like to win 14 out of 14. But one of the things that I did is a billboard campaign, putting our messaging out there, getting that out there about Trump. And so it energized them in a way that I don't think any other politician can do. He is able to communicate to South Texas better than anybody I've seen. And then the other thing that helps us in South Texas is the young people. There is a ton of young people in South Texas that are the majority, I think, that are very excited about the Republican Party. So,
Last question, and that is, do you think, because there's so much emphasis now on costs, how much, going to the grocery store, the cost of insurance, taxes, property taxes here in Texas, do you think that concern that people have is going to be the overall overriding concern, and so that all the other issues that you brought up before, they're not going to feel as strongly about those? It's
Right.
all about, how is this impacting my family, my budget, etc.
I do agree with you. We need to do something about the inflation that happened under Biden. It is going to take a little while for us to get that calmed, to find some way to lower it. So I'm a realtor. The one thing is that I'd love to see the interest rates come down. So I know that President Trump just had somebody else appointed in that role in regards to the interest rates. So hopefully somebody will be able to get in there soon and help correct this, because it is hurting everyday Americans. It's hurting me. It's hurting everybody we know. And to act like it's not there is wrong, but it's a national thing. It's not so much a state thing, but we've got to do something about it on a national side. And Attorney General Ken Paxton is the best one to do that with, because he is one of the most strategic thinkers that I know. I actually worked for the man, so I know how strategically he thinks through everything. And so I think that him being in the Senate will help us get to that, to be able to build coalitions to make sure that we address the things that really hurt everyday Texans, everyday Americans. And I think that not answering that question is something that would hurt us, but it's also something that the Democrats, for instance, when it comes to Virginia, the Democrats campaigned there that they were going to lower taxes. They were going to lower property taxes. They were going to be the ones, they sounded very Republican. Then they got in office, and within 1 week, they put out 100 tax bills for people to have. So Virginians are waking up to the fact of, oh my gosh, that wasn't true what they sold us. And so now, hopefully, their opportunity will come in 2 years that they can take their state back over. But we can't gamble on that in Texas. We've got to make sure that we keep us the #1 job creator in the country. We've got to make sure that we keep Texas.
And you think if Democrats win, if Tallarico wins or others, you think they'll pull a bait and switch?
Oh yeah. I mean, for a man that says the ludicrous things that he does, I don't think anything's beyond him not to say one thing and do another.
All right, we will leave it there. D'rinda Randall, newly elected chair of the Texas GOP. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.